Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey Graham. Join us here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where the independent new authors come first. Joining me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'm really happy to be talking with author Bill Maust. Bill, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I got to congratulate you. You have a new book out titled The Real Story of Santa Claus. Bill, can you tell me all about what you've written here?
So I was considering what to write about one year. I actually did this book in 1999. I had what I wanted to do, what I was hoping to achieve was create a gift for my kids each year for Christmas. And so this story came to me. I have a passion for the Bible. And through the Bible, I get a desire to learn more about the characters that you read about in the Bible. I wonder what happens to them after they have an encounter, say an encounter with Jesus. What happens to Simon of Cyrene? What happens to the rich young ruler? And then when I came across the rich young ruler, I thought, I think I can come up with a story about that. And it would allow me to create a story. I sometimes don't wonder if Christian parents worry a little bit about putting secular views into Christian holidays. So specifically, I thought about the character of Santa Claus and what role he can potentially play in teaching children, especially young children, about Christianity and giving them a first exposure to Christianity. So I thought if I can build a story off the rich young ruler, maybe we could take his life in a direction after he leaves Jesus and create that character of Santa Claus that we know.
So, Bill, what does your writing background look like? Have you been published a lot before this?
No. So I started writing in 97 every year for my sons, and I continued through 2009. It would typically take me about 10 months to write each story and then illustrate them. And then at Christmas, I would provide that story to my children as my family grew. I started with one son, then I got my second, and then our third son. Every year, my first son was probably about 3 years old when it started. Every year, I would add a story to their gift of stories each year. So that's how it started. And now I have actually 11 stories that are all original stories. We are in publication of the second right now. It's called Santa's List. It will build off of these characters that are in the first story, some of the characters that are in the first story. And it is a little more of an adventure story for Santa. So that part I'm really excited about. I love C.S. Lewis. I love J.R.R. Tolkien. So it'll be a little more of an adventure, what Santa has to do with those evil snow goblins. So that's just a little tidbit.
So when you were working on the real story of Santa Claus, you had your manuscript ready, you started working with the publisher, Christian Faith. What did you find the most challenging part of that publishing process?
Paying attention to detail is the most challenging part of writing a book, preparing your manuscript. And then when you think you have it right in submitting it, taking the time and going through typically 3 edits of your story. My story is a little bit longer. So what I envision with my story is a caregiver, a grandparent, a sibling, a parent, a family member, a friend reading to a small child. And what I really love is the thought of reading this story over a number of days, where each night the child looks forward to the next steps in that story. So it's a little longer, and that would develop for the child as they got older, where they can read it on their own. But I envision that grandparent reading the story to them over a couple of days, or parent, caregiver, and having that opportunity to spend some time with that child, giving them some exposure to Jesus, what he's done for us, maybe creating some conversation about that very thing. And then you have the opportunity to witness to your own child or being the caregiver of that child.
I think a lot of readers will be blessed by this book, definitely. It's titled The Real Story of Santa Claus. It's written by Bill Maust, published by Christian Faith Publishing and really available everywhere, like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Bill, it's been so nice talking with you today and learning all about the real story of Santa Claus. Thanks again for talking.
Thank you so much, and God bless you.
The new novel by Laura Lancaster. It promises to keep readers on the edge of their seats. It's titled The Sins of St. Anne's. And Laura is right here with me now, and we're going to talk all about it. Laura, welcome to the show. I appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm curious about The Sins of St. Anne's, Laura. Can you tell me what readers are going to get into here?
So this is a page-turner. It's obviously a mystery novel, it takes place in a setting in a girls' Catholic school. And so it's kind of the setting is rather ominous and takes a lot of twists and turns. It starts out with the young girl who has a repressed memory, and that's the gist of the whole book.
Laura, would you say that this is a book that primarily mystery fans would be into the most?
Definitely a mystery, that's for sure.
How did this book come about, Laura? Where'd you get the idea?
So it's kind of an interesting story in that when I was a little girl, I was at a Catholic school. And it's kind of, I remembered the hallways and the priests and the nuns and things like that. And quite honestly, there was always a mystere of the top floors where the nuns lived. And that's kind of how this idea was born. Certainly no experience with murder or anything like that, but that's kind of where the idea germinated from.
And what does your writing background look like? Are you experienced in this, or is this all kind of new ground for you?
This is new for me. This is my first novel, and I'm actually working on a second novel. But yes, this was my first.
Well, being your first effort, did this take you a really long time, the writing and the publishing and all that?
So it took me, I started this a long, long time ago. Working full time, it's rather hard to finish, a piece. And however, I had a lot of encouragement from family members. And so I finally just sat down, got it done, and finished it all in about 6-8 months. And then I actually had self-published it, but decided to go the professional route and have a publisher then do a formal, editing and things like that and publish it for me.
Once you started working with Newman Springs on that whole publishing process, Laura, what did you find the most challenging part about that?
I think the time. It took quite a bit of time. It took longer than I thought it would. So the editing piece and then the cover and the back and forth, they certainly wouldn't make any changes unless I approved everything. So I think the time it took was just probably the most challenging.
So you spent a long time, you put a lot of work into this, and finally that day came, you were holding the first copy of The Sins of St. Anne's, and it was a real thing finally, Laura. What was that like?
Oh my gosh. The feeling was I can't just, my gosh, I had really accomplished something that I really had thought about for a long, long time before I actually had sat down and put pen to paper. And so that was really a great feeling of satisfaction and accomplishment for myself.
And now you're officially a published author. So when you think about that, what's the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
I think the most rewarding is really having someone actually read my book and provide feedback that, gosh, I couldn't put that down. And I've heard that from numerous readers. And so that's very exciting for me. Obviously, wonderful feedback from a first effort. That's exciting.
So while you were sitting down and working on this, Laura, was writer's block ever something you had to deal with?
It was, because my style is not to sit down and draft out a whole book. I just write as I go. And so, yes, there were times when I was challenged with that. And so I would just take a little break and maybe even for, a couple days and, go about my business. And then, something would hit and let's go that way with it.
Are you the kind of writer who likes to get up really early in the morning and write, or maybe stay up really late at night and write, or you're the kind of author who just writes whenever you can find that time?
I'm definitely an early morning person, and it's a block of time I have to put aside for myself, and that's my quiet time, and I can get a lot done then.
Well, if you're looking for a mystery that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat, definitely check this out. Again, it's titled The Sins of St. Anne's. It's written by Laura Lancaster. and published by Newman Springs Publishing, and really available anywhere, like Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Laura, it's been great talking with you tonight and learning all about the sins of St. Anne's. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Corey. I appreciate it.
Right now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'm really happy to be talking with author Captain John Gibbons. Captain John, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's great to have you, and got to say congratulations. You got a new book out titled Full Ahead. So, Captain John, can you tell me all about it?
Sure, I'd love to. It's a book that starts out with deep state secrets, CIA kind of stuff. I got the idea from back in the day. There was the Iran-Contra scandal in the late 80s. And basically what that was so our own government stole Army equipment so they could give it to the Nicaraguan, guerrilla forces fighting down in Nicaragua because public support wasn't there for it. So they went around it. And so the book is kind of like that. The deep state wants to give equipment to Filipino guerrilla forces fighting terrorist groups. They devise a plot to where it appears the ship is sinking, is going to sink, so everyone will abandon ship, except they need an inside man, and so they get the captain to help them out with that. But things during the abandoning ship didn't quite go as planned. Some people got hurt and some people actually died. One of the crew members, the captain's chief mate, is not happy about that and thinks that perhaps something fishy is going on here. And so through some clues that he has over time, he realizes that what I just said happened. And he goes on a hunt for the captain of the ship. His name is Harry, Captain Harry Bolton. And every chapter, that whole entire chase scene, many chapters of it, chasing Harry down, is all in the water. This book is, I'm very passionate about the ocean. And so every chapter, the reader is immersed in either surfing or diving or sailing or being on a ship. Somehow, some way, every single chapter, you're in the water.
Now, Captain John, what sorts of readers do you think would be into this the most?
People that are into the water and shipping and sailing and diving. That is part of it. But at the same time, it's a very good deep state CIA plot. There's a lot of twists and turns in it. A reader along those lines, a lot of adventure, traveling around the world that I described. Most of the places that are in the book are places that I've been. I've been a sea captain for decades. And I boarded my first ship in the early 80s when I joined the Navy. And so I've been to almost every single coastal country in the world.
Wow.
I've been around, and so I describe the places well, and I have local knowledge. There's a lot of good information in the book, true facts. So I think a reader that's looking for adventure, some sort of, like I said, CIA undercover plots, mystery a little bit about what happened.
So what does your writing background look like? Are you experienced in it, or is this new ground for you?
Well, I've written an autobiography that I have out, and that's really, obviously a true story. So each chapter is a different ship that I've been on. I've been on over 28 different ships in my career. So I write about each ship. So I've done that. I took a creative writing class when I was in college, getting my marine science degree. I had to take some electives, so I chose that. I always thought actually my imagination, my creativity is for sure one of my greatest strengths in life. So I like to read. I like to read books like the one I wrote. And so I gave it a shot and I wrote a fictional book. And again, a lot of it is really based on my true life experiences. Even the ship that I named the Garcia is the exact replica of the ship that I was on, which was called the Lopez.
Well, this book definitely sounds exciting. I think a lot of readers are going to love it. Again, it's titled Full Ahead. It's written by Captain John Gibbons, published by Newman Springs Publishing, and available at places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Captain John, it's been really wonderful talking with you tonight and getting to learn all about Full Ahead. Thanks again for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my pleasure. Enjoy the read, everybody.
Sitting right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, I'm really happy to be speaking with author Deborah Akinnitire. Deborah, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, I'm happy to join you as well.
Well, it's great to have you here, and I wanted to say congratulations. You have a new book out titled The Perfect Gift of You. It's co-written by Folashore Akinnitire. Deborah, can you tell me all about this?
Well, Folashore is my daughter, and, it's a ritual, basically, but like after we're done praying in the morning, sometimes we say all of these words from the scripture. Sometimes we don't get to do it in the morning, and on the way to school, we just try to remind ourselves, I remind her, or she leads it, whichever way. What is God saying about you? Or how do you see yourself today? And so one day I was and I'm a teacher myself, if that helps, and I was just in school. I make my students do the same. I just got this epiphany, like, it would be cool to put this out for children, but it's a common thing. People do affirmation. I am this, I am that. But how about parents engaging in it with their children, whereby it's not saying I am, but rather the parents are using those words and saying you are, with a strong parental voice, sharing memories, opening scriptures, or like even sharing pictures to let this kid see exactly what they mean in action, where you can give examples of, this or some things that make you special, or like, these are some ways that God sees you, and these are the ways that we see it in action in your life and stuff like that. So that's how that started.
What does your writing background look like, Deborah? Are you experienced in this kind of thing?
No, it's my first time, but I like to say that I love writing, so I journal a lot. I have a lot more in my archive that I never thought to publish, but being a teacher, I was like, why not? I teach kids how to write. We write essays, we write stories, and everything in between. Like, why not just put it out there since it's something we already doing anyways informally?
So, being your first book, was this a long process for you overall? The writing, the publishing process, everything?
Yeah, overall it was, because I was juggling with a whole lot of stuff while doing that. But thank God, Covenant publishers were really awesome in the process. At some point, I'm like, I know we teach kids how you have to illustrate and make sure your illustration matches what you're saying, but I didn't realize how much I would need to really pray a lot to make sure that my illustration matched exactly the words. And so we had a lot of change this, change that here and there. So overall, I think it should have taken like 6 months to 9 months, but it took way more than that.
So you put a lot of time, a lot of work into this, but that one day comes and it's finally a real thing. Your first copy is there and you're holding The Perfect Gift of You for the first time, Deborah. What was that moment like for you?
Oh, my goodness. It was a beautiful moment, especially for my daughter. She was looking at her name. She was looking at the book. The front cover is inspired by one of her baby pictures, her first Christmas. And it was just a beautiful moment in our home. We sat down, we read it together, and it felt like it didn't even feel like we authored the book as if we knew the words. We just practiced what we expected families to practice. It was a very beautiful moment, joy mixed with like, wow, did we really do it? Some form of accomplishment. And also, I kind of feel like on my side, I had some form of hope and strong prayer in my heart that I just hope that every family that gets to hold a copy of this book really get to feel what we're feeling. And when they open every page, page by page, they're really able to push what the Word of God is saying to their children and affirm them and make them feel confident and make them feel powerful and make them feel loved and special. So like, a mix of like, I am so excited. I feel accomplished that this is done, but also like that sense of like, oh my goodness, this is here now. The next goal is I hope it really does what it was meant to do.
Well, what a wonderful message in this book. It's titled The Perfect Gift of You. It's co-written by Deborah Akinnitire and Folashore Akinnitire and published by Covenant Books. So find it at places like Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Deborah, it's been so nice talking with you tonight. Thanks again for joining me.
Thank you so much. It's been nice chatting with you.
the new book that just came out, written by James Wesley Ivy Jr. It's titled The Obstacles and Hardships in Life, the Book of Sermons. It's a guide to overcoming life's challenges through faith. And James is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We get to talk all about this. James, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me, Corey.
Well, the pleasure's all mine. I'm excited to learn all about the obstacles and hardships in life. James, can you tell me all about it?
Yes. My book, The Obstacles and Hardships in Life, the Book of Sermons, is a book about faith. It's a book about overcoming trials and continue to stay the course no matter what, because sometimes it do get hard. But one of the key messages in the obstacles and hardships in life is that trials are often God's way of molding us for a greater purpose. Just like Joseph in the Bible, who went from the pit to the palace. Our hardships can be the very thing God uses to prepare us for a higher calling. Sometimes instead of asking why me, we should stop and think and just ask, Lord, what are you trying to teach me through this? And that kind of shifts our perspectives and allow us to embrace struggles as part of our spiritual journey and testimony.
James, what sorts of readers do you think would get the most out of this?
Well, I'm thinking that, especially for the faith community, because I've been looking at some of the faith-based communities around the globe and around the country, and I looked at, and sometimes some of the things I see them do, I'm like, that is not what God wants us to do. Sometimes people twist things a little bit, but here's my goal, though. My goal is to reach the people that have not gotten into Christianity. And I want to use the book as a positive way to get them to see that being in Christianity doesn't mean that you give up your life or you give up pleasure. Being a Christian is all, to me, too much of a joy. I have more fun now as being a Christian than I did when I was not a Christian.
James, what does your writing and publishing background look like? Are you new to all this?
Oh, I'm brand new to this course. This is like fresh ocean water to me. This is like I've been on the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Mexico. This is like being in the Pacific for me. It's like all new territory.
So once you had your manuscript all set and you started working with Christian Faith Publishing, what would you say was the most challenging part of that publishing process for you?
Going back and having to reread and recorrect and going back through my original manuscript and putting it against what they went and revised, that was challenging. Because sometimes at points I was like, I didn't want to do this. But then there was this other side of me saying, listen, I don't came too far. I'm too far to not do it. That was the challenging part for me. It's just the correcting stage.
And you put so much hard work into this, and that day finally came. Your first copy, your book was finally a real thing. James, what was that moment like for you?
Oh, God, I almost jumped out of my seat at work. Because once I talked to Christian Faith, my publisher sent me an email and said, your book is now on Amazon. And when I went, it wasn't there like the first 1 or 2 days, but then he was saying, just keep checking. And one day I happened to be at work. I'm also a police officer. I'm a chief of police. And just before I got ready to leave the office, the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, "Dude, check." And when I checked and seen it, my eyes literally almost popped out of my head. And I was like, oh, my God. And it was a feeling like I did this. It was a proud moment, Corey. It was a very proud moment for me. Being a minister also, it was especially proud because it was something that I did for God. I did, like I said, for the Christian community and for everyone that's thinking about joining Christianity. I want to let them know also, too, that it's not going to be an easy journey. Mm-hmm. It's not easy.
Well, I know so many people will be blessed by this book. Again, it's titled The Obstacles and Hardships in Life, the Book of Sermons. It's written by James Wesley Ivy Jr. and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So find it at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, James, it's been great talking with you tonight. Thanks again for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Corey, for having me. I was having a rough day today, but coming on talking to you has made my day. Thank you so much, Corey.
book I'm looking at right now is a call to action for addressing and overcoming domestic abuse. It's written by Sonia Martin, and it's titled Warfare in the Home, Empowering Women of Color Against Domestic Violence. And we'll be talking all about this book. The author, Sonia, is right here with me now. Sonia, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here with me tonight.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
Well, it's great to have you, and I'm really curious to learn all about warfare in the home, Sonia. Can you tell me about it?
So I was really motivated to write this book out of my own personal experience with domestic violence. And it so happened that between the year 2010 and 2013, I was married to an ordained pastor. And so I'm in ministry and he's in ministry. I used to be ordained as an evangelist. And so we were very much attracted to the fact that we had the same ideology in terms of our belief in our faith in God. One of the things that I can tell you that was a red flag was he was rushing me to get married. We were dating for 3 months. And he wanted to get married. I said, well, we should wait until we get to know each other a little bit better. And so anyway, we ended up getting married at 6 months. Unbeknown to me, there was a lot of issues that really showed up. One was substance abuse. This gentleman who'd become very violent when he's under the influence of some kind of substance. So we can start from there. But I want to say that sometimes women looking for a husband, and especially church women, and you're looking at the outward appearance of the person. You're looking at what you can see. This guy was very educated, very knowledgeable of the Word of God. And so I was really drawn into that. So after going through that experience, and it was really horrible experience that I went through, I really was motivated to go back to school. And I was going back to school for one purpose, and that was to write about my experience, but I wanted to do it from an informed position. Not just the fact that I had a life experience, but I wanted to also understand what other sources found out about intimate partner violence. And so that's where, in 2016, I went back to school, New York Theological Seminary, and from there I started putting my thoughts together, understanding a little bit more in depth about domestic violence. Men, most of the time, who are abusers are abusing because they want to have the upper hand. They want to have the power and they want to have the control over their wives or their girlfriends.
So what does your writing background look like, Sonia? Is this your first effort, or do you have some experience in writing and publishing and all that?
I really did not. I just know that as a girl growing up, I just loved writing. And so I really, really spent a lot of time journaling and writing up my thoughts. But in terms of writing a book before, I had not written anything before this domestic violence story. And I kind of decided when I went to Northeastern Seminary that I would expand on, my dissertation. And my dissertation was close to 300 pages. So I said I need to write probably another 2 books from just my balance of the dissertation, because there's some other issues that, of course, we covered, the role of woman in what God intended marriage to be like.
Well, what an important book. This is definitely needed out there. Again, it's titled Warfare in the Home, Empowering Women of Color Against Domestic Violence. This is written by Sonia Martin and published by Christian Faith Publishing, so get it at places like Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes, and also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Sonia, thank you so much for coming on the show and telling me about this book. I really had a good time talking.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, and I'm hoping that women will be informed and that men will also understand that they have a role to play in addressing domestic violence. Thank you so much.
Well, there's a fresh approach to Sudoku strategies and techniques in the new book by Sudoku Sam. It's titled Modus Fortis, Sudoku Logic, Sudoku Reason. And Sam is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. We're going to talk all about it. Sam, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Well, it's nice to be talking with you. I'm curious about Modus Fortis. Can you tell me all about this book?
Yeah, it started out 17 years ago as an effort to solve Sudoku puzzles. I thought that, I have some training in science and mathematics. I'm not a mathematician, though. I've done some math and published a little bit of that. So I figured I would figure this out in a couple of days. 17 years later, my book's come out. It's an excursion into Sudoku to find out what the actual logic is behind Sudoku. A lot of people talk about the logic of Sudoku, but nobody really talks about what that logic is. And I expressly describe what the logic behind Sudoku is. And that's the modus fortis, or what I call the modus fortis. It has a more formal name, which is modus tollendo ponens. Modus fortis just has a better ring to it.
Sam, what does your writing background look like? Do you have experience in this whole thing, or is this fairly new ground for you?
Well, I've written 3 short books, very small books, as part of a 5-book series that I intended to write on Sudoku solving. Sudoku Sam's no-notes strategy for solving Sudoku, Sudoku Sam's starting out right strategy for solving Sudoku, and Sudoku Sam's meta strategy for solving Sudoku. And that was 2008 and 2009. Those books laid the foundation for this particular book. But I have other publications in my scientific career, a chapter in a book and several scientific publications.
Well, I'm looking at the book right now, Sam, and I love the cover. It's beautiful, that beach scene. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, well, I started solving Sudoku in St. Bart's. My wife, we weren't married at the time, but my wife went down to St. Bart's to spend some time with some friends and invited me to come down. I had lectures to do while she was down there, so I didn't go down till later. When I flew in, we walked across the street from the airport, a really small airport, into a pharmacy to get some things that she needed to take back. And I went over to the magazine rack because I hadn't brought anything to do. I found a Sudoku magazine. So I got a magazine and started solving the books. I figured I'd knock it out in a couple of hours. That became an illusion. 4 days later, I was still working on my same simple puzzle. It just grabbed me right there, and I just had to figure this thing out. So I worked on another one, and by that time I was back in the States, and it was getting to the point where I just couldn't move any further, I didn't think. So I bought a couple of books online and started reading them, and it just flabbergasted me. I couldn't believe what these people were telling me to do, and it just didn't make any sense at all to me. So I just decided that, well, hey, I'll just figure this thing out. I know I can figure it out, but it'll take some time. And so I did, and finally published my book in September of last year.
There's nothing like that finished product, especially after all the time you put into this. So when you were holding your first copy of this, Sam, what was that moment like for you?
It was a moment of exhilaration and relief and thankfulness. And I couldn't have done this without my wife. She provided me a comfortable place to work and so forth. So I dedicated the book to her, to Jane, without whom this would never have happened. That was just a special moment in time when I could actually take that book and show it to her and say, see, I told you. I told you I was going to write a book.
Well, what an interesting book. Again, it's titled Modus Fortis, Sudoku Logic, Sudoku Reason. It's written by Sudoku Sam and published by Newman Springs Publishing and really available everywhere. Amazon or Barnes & Noble and iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Oh, Sam, it's been really great talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks. It's been nice talking with you.
The new book that just came out, written by Thelma J. Flynn, it's titled Lines of Life Run Through the Mountains, A Message of Hope. It's a journey of faith and resilience, and I get to find out all about it. The author, Thelma, is right here with me. Thelma, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Can you tell me all about Lines of Life Run Through the Mountains, Thelma? What kind of stuff did you write about here?
The book is a true-to-life story that's written from the heart. It's not just a motivational piece of work. It's also a theme is universal. It's a true-to-life story, and it offers wisdom and hope for all of those who have walked the paths of adversity. And it also, no matter how insurmountable the obstacles may seem in your life, for those who feel there is no way out of their problems, there is always hope and a path forward. This book will speak to your heart. And as you read the book, you will feel empowered with a new sense of control and purpose. It is follow a family of 12, 10 children and 2 parents facing insurmountable odds of hopelessness, poverty, pain, hunger, while living in the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia in the 1900s into the present day.
Well, Thelma, how did this come about? Where did you get the idea for this?
I, of course, grew up in the mountains of Virginia in my earlier years, and I had retired from the federal government, and I was having some physical challenges. And I'm a late nighter, so I stay up at night, and I just begin to put my heart down on paper. And as time went by, I just continued to put thoughts and ideas on paper. And then one day I realized that I had a manuscript.
So is this your first time doing this kind of thing, Thelma, or do you have some experience in it?
I have zero experience at writing and becoming an author, but I'm an expert at living life and being overcome with obstacles, and yet I have survived and have lived a wonderful life.
So was this a long journey for you overall then, the writing and publishing part, all of that?
It's been quite an interesting process. I've learned a lot. I didn't realize that I was writing a book until one night around 3:30 in the morning, I heard an advertisement on TV for Christian Publishing Company. And I was writing and I hadn't finished all the editing. And I thought, I'm going to send this to them just to see what they think about it. And lo and behold, in a few days later, they called and said they wanted to partner with me to write this book. And I said, if one person reads the book and finds hope, finds their God, or finds their way down the mountain that they are struggling to climb, then the book is a success.
So once you started working with Christian Faith Publishing and beginning that publishing process, Thelma, what did you find the most challenging part of that for you?
The most challenging probably was the editing part was quite consuming. During the long process, you find yourself sometimes beginning to get a little overwhelmed. And I had to step back and say, just take your time and go through this again. And I was able to get to where I am and publish it and work with the team to do the cover. They've been wonderful, and I'm just so pleased with all aspects that they've helped walk me through.
So when you were finally holding that first copy and you were looking at it, it was finally a real thing for you, Thelma. What kind of moment was that like for you?
The UPS delivered my sample copies of the book. I opened it and could not believe what the editing team did to the cover and how wonderful it was, because it truly indicates life's pathways with all the lines that are on the book, cover to cover. Every person that touches that book, one of those lines belong to them, and they're climbing the mountain, and at the top there is a message of hope.
Well, this book certainly has a great message. Again, it's titled Lines of Life Run Through the Mountains, A Message of Hope. It's written by Thelma J. Flynn, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and really available pretty much anywhere like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Thelma, it's been great talking with you tonight. Thanks again for being here with me.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
I'm looking at a book that's an exploration of identity and technology. It's written by Milton Cruz. It's titled Unbecoming Human. and we'll be talking all about this. Milton is sitting right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Milton, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Milton, can you tell me all about what you've written about in Unbecoming Human?
Well, it's based in my life experiences and as a professional teacher, preacher, choir director, father, grandfather, community member, and all the good things that a great human can perform and do if it wishes to and select to do so.
Well, Milton, what kind of a reading audience did you have in mind for this?
It's open to anyone, especially the people that are curious to find out and searching for answers like the one I address in my book.
So how did this all come about? What gave you the idea to write this?
Well, since I was a child, age 7, I've been always doing things strangely. I was occupying my little world. Having a brother younger than me, but he was in his niche and I was in mine. Mine was to be curious and ask questions and make comments. My aunts used to tell me, Junior, how do you know what you're saying? And I used to tell them, it's right in front of you, Auntie. So I had that open mind and curiosity for things. My best example is I used to do my math even before I got to school on the air. I didn't have a piece of paper. I just wrote the numbers in my imagination, looking to any point in particular, and did my math. So that's how it became. And then by the experiences that I have endured in life, going through all kinds of trials, I joined the Army 30 and a half years, got out at 51, make a career through basically food service and orthopedics before I joined the Army. And then after I left the Army, I taught in middle school and high school. High school, I taught law. I asked questions to my friends, and that's how I made that class possible. Ancient history, science, math. Wow, what I have not talked about. I also was a student at the seminary, Protestant seminary. I served as a pastor in a rural town for a couple of years, and then I joined the service and all this stuff, but I didn't go into the clergy. I went to the jobs that I described. Orthopedics, the medical field, and later when I rejoined the Army, I went to the food service, and then I worked with the dietitians. So I'm an overall well-rounded person. I also have abilities in mechanics, electricity. I inherited from my dad. My dad, it was from the very old school. He only had an 8th grade, and he went and worked tourist complex in San Juan, Puerto Rico, one of the largest ones. And he used to tell my mom when he came back from work, hey, Esther, I have to help the engineers that graduate from the college and how to solve the problems. So that's been my example, and that's how I am. I'm a well-rounded person, almost every topic. And I love to teach. I love to sing. I play drums. That's my part of my percussion, I should say, part of my personal life. And I have children from different marriages, and I have grandchildren as well. So I have touched almost every base in life, and I have learned a lot of stuff. And that's what my book is based on those experiences that make life meaningful. And we can learn from each other. And I just make a quick comment. I was looking at Google Books yesterday. As a matter of fact, Sunday at church, talking about my book, and when I opened it up, I was surprised. I liked it because they just put out basically a preview of the book, and the pastor and the church members liked it. So that's the whole point, and that's what I want to make my point across.
Oh, what a wonderful book. Again, this is titled Unbecoming Human. It's written by Milton Cruz and published by Christian Faith Publishing and available at places like Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes, also traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Milton, thanks again for coming on the show and telling me all about your work. It was really great talking with you.
I'm glad you gave me the opportunity.
The new book, written by Salma Carunia Carter, it's titled Christ is in Me. It's an account of faith and perseverance. Salma is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, and we get to talk all about it. Salma, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Can you tell me all about what you've written in Christ is in Me?
Well, this book is my autobiography, an adventurous story of my life. Growing up in a Christian orphanage in South India, was founded and staffed mostly by the devout missionaries, where from an early age I became aware of the power of God in my life and how I increasingly relied on that power through the times of joy and the times of despair that ensued. It is not often that Americans in the 21st century encounter other Americans who come from such unique beginnings as myself. I was born prematurely, less than 3 pounds. My mother died during the childbirth, and there was no real hope of my survival. I was blessed to be taken by Amy Carmichael, where she hired the wet nurses to get the babies growing. I had 2 of them. She hired them from the village around Dohnavur. The fact that I survived was a miracle and of in itself. And then to survive in such a unique Christian community, which would be called a kibbutz in Hebrews, this also was a miracle. We had no electricity, no shoes, no running water, no indoor toilets, no toilet paper, only used water, a very plain diet, strict rules on dress and bedtimes, etc. We had teachers, dairy farmers, fruit trees for climbing and eating, weavers for all our clothes, and a central church whose bells marked each and every day routine. So, a series of spiritual awakenings and seemingly miraculous occurrences are a crucial part of my story. The story continues through my young adulthood, which included a transition to teaching at an English medium school up in Himalayas, and finally, against all odds, my arriving in America with $1 in my pocket, which also serves as my purse. The book narrates my biography, but not just a biography. It actually captures all the small and big details of a historical era. An Indian orphan found Jesus Christ as her personal savior, and then she came over to America, found her love of my life.
Wow, Salma, what an amazing story you have. What kinds of readers did you have in mind? Who were your target audience here?
Yeah, my target audience are Christians and my fellow brothers and sisters of other religions who would be interested in the story of one little orphan girl, that is Salma, growing into adulthood in a biblical grounded orphanage in South India, a place of great beauty, yet primitive conditions, and of love and support from some, and suppressions and harsh punishments from others, which involving great hardship, laborious and very difficult to endure. And the reader's interest should be sustained in Salma, who overcame such hardship, being aware of power of God by faith in Jesus Christ, who redeemed her when she was 15 years old. A conversion experience that she had led to her to this title of Christ is in me, the hope of glory. The hope became my future at time of my lower point of my life, where there was no hope, and going forward.
Well, it sounds like this book is going to bless a lot of readers. Again, it's titled Christ is in Me. It's written by Salma Carunia Carter and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So get it at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Salma, thank you again for coming on the show and telling me all about your story. It was really nice talking with you tonight.
Thank you, sir. You have a good evening.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. We hope to see you back here every Friday night at 8 p.m. or listen anytime via podcast at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, to name just a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.